Hi again, everyone, and welcome. My name is Catherine Maller, and I'm the Cultural Program Coordinator at the Goethe-Institut, New York. I'm thrilled to welcome you to Kitchen Medicine, the first event in our new series, Apotheke, A Digital Third Place. This series combines German approaches to holistic wellness and balance with American theories of self-care and wellness outside of capitalism. Over the next 2 months in this series, we'll be interrogating the compulsion to work while creating a communal, non-commercial digital space that allows for relaxation and pleasure, along with learning and exchange. Today, certified herbalist Rachelle Robinett will be teaching us the basics of kitchen medicine, including how to use accessible ingredients to promote health and incorporate plants into your everyday life, as well as some history and context about herbalism. Rachelle is a holistic health practitioner, certified herbalist, and founder of Supernatural, a plant-based real-world wellness initiative. Rachelle combines her knowledge of herbal and traditional medicine, plant-based nutrition, and habit remodeling into holistic solutions for busy individuals seeking best being in their bodies and minds. Rachelle maintains a private coaching practice in New York and is the mastermind behind Herbal remedy gummies for stress and anxiety relief, and energy and endurance. Her passions include publishing, teaching, speaking, well-being advocacy, and exploring plants in faraway places, which hopefully she'll be able to do again soon. There will be time for questions at the end, so please submit your questions in the chat. You can submit them either to us or to all of the attendees as well. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat and helping with questions at the end. And with that, I will hand it off to Rachelle. Welcome, Rachelle.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here. Appreciative and excited, and get to talk about one of my favorite sort of niches within herbalism, which is, kitchen medicine, accessible herbal remedies. And this is something that is really central to herbalism and central to my practices. So I will dive in now, actually on that note, mentioning that, the way that I do present herbalism, or aim to present herbalism, is accessibly, and that can be in conversation with somebody who walks into the cafe and is looking for an herb for X, an herb for Y, an herb for Z, or this comes up a lot in, intimate one-on-one sessions, which involve always, meeting people wherever they are, working with what we have on hand or nearby, what's accessible. And all of that has been really kind of heightened and highlighted now with both the raise in awareness about health. First it was immunity, and now it's becoming a little bit more holistic and preventative. And also the restriction of our access to so many of the things that used to be kind of commonplace and easy to get to. I think, accessibility historically is central to herbalism, or you could even say, that they're synonymous in the sense that, herbalism arose out of the practices of using the natural environment that we're surrounded by to medicate ourselves, to heal, to prevent, to recover. So they're best friends, and the modern wellness take on herbalism doesn't always present them that way. So it's a great reminder to kind of come back to the essentiality of the two of those things. So herbalism, just to kind of define it quickly, is the study or the practice of the medicinal and therapeutic uses of plants. Now you see it especially as a form of alternative medicine. There are well over 50,000 medicinal plants around the world. And that's just, that we know of. There are many, many, many more that we simply just don't know of. About a quarter of prescribed medications are derived from medicinal plants or were originally derived from medicinal plants. Things like aspirin coming from white willow tree bark, anesthesia being derived originally from plants. And this is the most key to me. About 80% of the world's population relies mainly on traditional medicine as a primary source of healthcare. And traditional medicine is kitchen medicine and herbalism, which again, for me, are just one and the same. So in my practice and in my work, I do always start with nutrition in terms of how to heal. It is, to me, it's far more important than taking herbs and supplements. We need the nutrition as the foundation. And that is just looking at food as medicine. Today, I'm going to talk about a little bit of a hybrid. So we'll look at plants that are both medicinal and culinary. So likely to be in your kitchen or easy to incorporate into your kitchen, and particularly medicinal, where, we love spinach and I prescribe a lot of spinach, but that's not necessarily the most, medicinal of all the plants out there. So we'll cover a few that are both. And we'll start with parsley. And parsley is just one example of these fresh green herbs that are often overlooked as medicinal plants, but particularly potent for a lot of different reasons. Many of them share the benefits that I'll describe with parsley, and some have some extras. So the parsley family includes other edible plants, of course, and those include carrot and parsnip, and then aromatic spices like anise, celery, coriander, caraway, cumin, dill, fennel. Parsley is native to Southern Europe and Western Asia, but has been cultivated all over the world, of course, and is an example of a plant that's very easy to grow at home. So it's another reason why I love these fresh green herbs. You can grow them at home. Kind of some fun facts. I always have these like funny historical facts. Parsley was used in ancient Rome in salads, which of course is a good way to use it, not just as a garnish, but eating it. But also to eliminate the effects of a hangover, which I think we've since realized, it doesn't quite work. And then also worn as decoration as garlands on the head. When it comes to choosing parsley, there are two different types. There's curly parsley and there's the Italian parsley or the flat leaf. And the curly is a bit more bitter and has these sort of wrinkled, kind of compressed leaves, whereas the flat leaf is as described, flat leaf. There's also parsley root, and if you're in the States, you may not have seen parsley root, but abroad you see it a little bit more often. It looks like a parsnip, and it's actually this sort of root vegetable that you can eat. A quick note on bitterness in plants, in sort of leaves and spices. Anytime we have a bitter flavor, that's especially helpful for digestion. So our body registers the bitter flavor throughout our digestive tract, and then tells our digestive system to secrete gastric acid and hydrochloric acid to get the stomach ready to digest food. So if you like bitter food or bitter greens, great. If you don't like them, consider the idea that bitter isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just a flavor that a lot of us have been kind of we've grown to consider, a negative or it's distasteful. But one way to kind of retrain the palate is just to nibble on things that are bitter. You don't have to eat, a whole serving of mustard greens, but nibbling on a little bit of bitter green, any kind of bitter green plant can help instigate digestion. So in terms of some of the benefits of parsley, there are so many. It is rich in sodium and potassium, and this is particularly helpful for regulating the fluids in the body. So you can consider it a mild diuretic, but it's also nourishing. you know, so we don't want things that are just sort of forceful diuretics or forceful laxatives, but if something has that function and can be providing us with nutrients at the same time, like celery is another example, cucumber is another example, it's a really good way to keep the excess water weight, you know, off, but also stay hydrated. So parsley, like other fresh green herbs, is rich in volatile oils. Specifically in parsley, we have those oils stimulating kidney function, which again helps with fluid throughout the body. Like almost all medicinal plants, it's antibacterial, antifungal, antioxidant. This sort of antioxidant and antimicrobial is very, very common in medicinal plants, especially those that are high in volatile oils. Volatile oils is another way of saying essential oil, by the way. Let's see, it's high in vitamins K, C, A, and B. Vitamin K is particularly notable. Just a couple of tablespoons of parsley gives you more than your sort of daily intake, recommended daily intake of vitamin K. And K is helpful for calcium binding in our body. So if you're supplementing with calcium or you're worried about osteoporosis, you're just focused on that nutrient and bone health, it can be helpful to make sure you have a regular dose of parsley. My other favorite note about it is that it's high in vitamin C, which we love for all of the reasons that we love vitamin C. But vitamin C helps to enhance iron absorption. And you can get iron from green plants, like the spinach that I dismissed earlier. And when we pair it with something like parsley, we're absorbing more of the iron. I'll return to this note a little bit later on when I talk about some fruits, but here's a specific point. It captures, the way that this works is that the vitamin C is capturing a non-heme iron. So non-heme is like a plant-based iron, and stores it in a form that's more easily absorbable to the body or bioavailable. One more fun fact, parsley can help minimize the potentially cancer-causing effects of these things called heterocyclic amines. These are produced when food is grilled so high that it chars, right? It turns black and it's burned on the outside, which we, you know, a lot of us love when we're grilling meat, but that can be dangerous. Parsley can help counteract that. So consider, you can marinate it in parsley type things, but my favorite is making chimichurri. Make chimichurri with your char grilled meats, and you'll be doing yourself a big favor. And you'll also probably be eating a bunch of other green herbs that have all these benefits that we love. One ingredient that could be in your chimichurri or not, but should definitely be in your kitchen, is garlic. So I usually just start with garlic as my food medicine. It's pretty, like, it's pretty hard to beat. Especially earlier this year when immunity was a big focus. I was recommending garlic to everybody. Garlic and ginger, garlic and ginger, garlic and ginger. It is potently antibacterial, antiviral. So those do what they sound like they do. It's a fairly strong tumor inhibitor, particularly for stomach, pancreas, breast, prostate, lungs, kidneys, and brain. So some major organs. Antioxidant, as I mentioned. Antioxidant, if you're not quite sure what that means, a quick way to think about it is antioxidation, so anti-aging, basically. Here's something important to know about garlic. Cooking garlic immediately destroys most of its health benefits. Everyone's like, what? I have to eat it raw. I can't eat it raw. You don't have to eat it raw. So there's two ways around that. One, you can eat it raw, which is a good idea, you know, in the chimichurri or whatever. Or chop it up and then, or crush it or smash it, whatever the, breaking action is going to be, and then wait 10 minutes. And I'll explain to you why. So garlic, so the active ingredient in garlic that we're after is allicin. And garlic doesn't actually contain it. It contains two different ingredients that when they combine, produce the allicin. So what you want to do is crush it, press it, smash it. Those two, one of those is an enzyme. Those two compounds combine and produce the allicin. And then that enzyme, which is really delicate and will be destroyed by heat, then we don't need it anymore. And so then you can cook the garlic and it has the allicin in it. So that's the garlic tip. Okay. So next up, I wanted to talk about rosemary. So back into kind of fresh green herbs or greenish herbs, plants that you can grow in your home if you wanted to, or outside. Otherwise, fairly easy to find. Also something you can find fresh or dried, and in essential oil form and lots of other forms, which I'm sure there'll be some questions about, so we can talk about that if we need to. Rosemary is a member of the mint family, and the mint family is especially medicinal. It includes a lot of the plants that we might sort of know as mints, and many, many more. So if you're excited about, herbs or culinary medicine, that could be a great family to explore. It also grows wild, even in urban environments. There are a lot of mint plants along the route that I run here in Brooklyn. And one way that it's possible to identify mint plants is by the stem being square. So it may be very small, but you feel it or look at it closely and you'll see that it's square, and you'll know, oh, this plant is a member of the mint family. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's mint, but it's in that family. So rosemary, the Latin name means approximately dew of the sea. And we think of rosemary for remembrance. So it's largely a brain health supportive herb. It was used that way in ancient Greece. It was studied with, oh my gosh, there's some construction. I hope it's not too loud. It was studied with to help enhance memory, and has been used, in for thousands of years. So the way that rosemary works specifically is, and actually, if it does get too loud, just flag me and I'll try to move into another room. Hopefully not. The way that rosemary works is primarily through a terpene called BCP. That's how it's abbreviated. And terpenes, I'm giving you lots of rabbit holes to run down after this session if you're excited about them. Terpenes are fascinating plant compound that you can explore. So BCP, it's in rosemary, but we also see it in hops, cloves, and many other plants. Cannabis is another one. So BCP is working on different receptors in the body, in the brain, and also in the endocannabinoid system. So that's a system that's fairly newly understood. And a lot of times we associate it only with cannabis, but there are lots of other plants that actually work on the endocannabinoid system via terpenes like BCP. And the benefits that we see from this include improved circulation, which is a huge one, cognitive clarity and mood improvement, which tend to come from the increased circulation. So plants that are increasing circulation in the body are benefiting basically every system. Brain, I mean, just imagine skin, brain, circulation, body temperature, detoxification, energy exertion. It's just, those are definitely our friends. And you see rosemary as a main ingredient in some of the Blue Zones diets too. Well correlated with longevity, and that's probably coming from this antioxidant content and then the circulation increase. Let's see. So it's also helping to dilate capillaries. So that's part of the action. A lot of times these plants will have multiple ways of kind of increasing circulation or improving the quality of the blood, even the oxygenation of the blood as it flows through the body. This can also be tension relieving. So dilating the capillaries and getting the flow moving can help to reverse any sort of, constricted, tense areas. So obviously, if you have tension headaches or something, this could be very helpful. We see it for, like I said, mental clarity, memory, stagnancy that can lead to depression or headaches or nervous tension. I use it as an essential oil in the afternoon to kind of wake up and pick myself up. I don't have caffeine in the afternoons, no harm if you do, but rosemary for me is a really good pick-me-up. And you can also use it internally that way. I think I saw a question about that, so we'll definitely get to that when we answer questions. Internally, it's also used for indigestion, and let's see, some sort of skin, joint, tendon issues. I'm gonna move on past that, but if you have a specific interest in rosemary for those systems, just go ahead and ask at the end, or ask now and we'll answer at the end. In terms of using it, so you can definitely do fresh, either grown, sourced, or purchased at a store. It can be eaten, it can be drunk as a tea, it can be had as an essential oil. It can be, my favorite way is to dry it and grind it up in like a coffee grinder or mortar and pestle, and mix it in with salt. And that way, anytime you're salting your food, you're rosemary salting your food. So it's like this functional salt. That's been my favorite for a long time, actually. Okay. Let's see. And maybe we will pause for just a second before I get into the last two categories here and see if there are some questions we should answer about those. And actually, I can open the chat and just look here and see. So, is rosemary good for acne? I haven't seen that specific combination, but that doesn't mean that it's not the case. There are other herbs that I do know that are more reliable for acne. One of the most important things to consider when treating, acne, anxiety, sleep disorders, anything, and this is a really big point, is to try to back up to the cause. If the cause of the acne is hormone imbalance, then I definitely wouldn't recommend rosemary. If the cause of the acne were, for some reason, it were being caused by a lack of circulation, not something we see too often, but surely could happen, then maybe we would look at rosemary. So the cause really, really drives the treatment. So pairing herbs or food or lifestyle adjustments. Benefits of fresh versus dry. So fresh is generally preferable, especially for plants that we want to get the full rainbow, the full spectrum of compounds from. So this is another reason why kitchen medicine, food medicine, whole plant medicine is often favorable to taking a supplement that's just extracted just the BCP, for example. We know pretty well that when we extract single compounds or kind of 1-2 compounds out of a plant and make it super potent and try to take it in a supplement, which is a big portion of what the supplement industry is about, and it's not all wrong, but we do know that tends to work less effectively than when we have the full plant compound. So all the different, hundreds of different nutrients and phytochemicals in the plant. And that's sometimes referred to as the X factor. They're like, we don't really know why eating the whole parsley is more effective, but it is. Now, the difficult thing with the whole plant medicine is you don't know the dosage. Every parsley or rosemary is going to be a different concentration. And it probably won't be super, super potent, you know, in the same way that like a tablespoon of dried rosemary would be. It's, you know, it's more. So there are benefits and trade-offs. If you really, you know, I would say eat it, work it into your, you know, into your kitchen. But if you're like, rosemary sounds like it's really the plant that I need, and I want, you know, to supplement with it additionally, then try to find a supplement that is extracting full plant medicine, and using that in addition to rosemary in your diet. Let's see. Can you cook rosemary? Yep, you can cook rosemary. Again, you can have it raw, cooked, as a tea, as an essential oil. Pickling or fermenting is great. I love that. This was actually a question about garlic. Is fermented garlic paste or pickled garlic still holding its medicinal properties? You know what I would recommend though is crush that garlic before pickling it, if possible. It's going to change, obviously, the, you know, you won't have whole cloves in there, but remember that the allicin is created by that compression, and then you can do what you want with the garlic, right? So I would smash it at least. Let's see. Okay, I think I got through most of those questions. We'll save questions unrelated to the plants I just talked about for the end. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to grapefruit and citrus. So this category is also a high terpene food. And remember, terpenes, or I guess I didn't say this, but terpenes are present in the oils. So the volatile oil or the essential oil. And that is in the skin of the citrus. So let's look at grapefruit for a minute specifically. Grapefruit is the product of an accidental cross of a pomelo and an orange about 300 years ago, which reminds me how much I love pomelos. I don't see those very often, but those are so good. It was brought to Florida, and now that's the area where most of the fruit comes from. So the major active compound in the grapefruit is the volatile oil in the peel, and it's called limonene. So just like with the BCP and just like all these other terpenes that you can explore if you want to, it's one compound, but it exists in lots of different plants. So if you liked the BCP, you can say, okay, what other plants contain this terpene? Or limonene, what other plants contain this terpene? And some examples are the citrus, like I mentioned. So lemon, lime, orange, grapefruit, also juniper berries, also peppermint. Just coming back to the mint family. And you see crossover too with the mint family also having a terpene. So this happens too. There's, you know, one plant, I may be talking about the terpene, but it has probably 20 other active compounds in it that are beneficial. And oranges are actually the highest. They contain the highest percent of limonene per sort of surface area of the peel. Now, if you're using the peels of citrus, we can talk about the different ways to do that. It's really important to be getting them either locally or organically. Even washing the peels doesn't remove, I don't know if I have it written down here, but it only removes a minor percentage of pesticides or chemicals that were used. So if you don't have access to organic citrus peels, then you would not want to use the peels. You can just use the fruit and get other benefits from that, or find limonene in other, you know, in peppermint, for example. So the scent of the citrus is actually caused by and consumed by those essential oils. So just like essential oils in a bottle, when we kind of squeeze the peel of a citrus fruit, or we smell it, we're inhaling tiny little particles of those volatile oils. And those are often received by the amygdala in the brain, which is the part of the brain that helps to regulate memories and mood. You see then how easy it can be for limonene, which has been proven to be a pretty potent antidepressant, to work quickly when consumed as an essential oil, which means smelled. So the citrus fragrance has been shown to also restore stress-induced immunosuppression. So you could say, oh, it's helping to, return immunity to normal, or perhaps it's helping to improve my state of mind, which is then allowing my immune system to return to a state of normal. So when we're stressed or scared or in fight or flight or in chronic kind of overexertion mode, our body suppresses other functions that are not considered critical, and the immune system is one. So if you feel chronically stressed and then you get sick, if you know that pattern about yourself, that's why it's happening. And we can see citrus fragrance helping to normalize that out, probably from the improved state of mind. It's also helpful for normalizing hormones at the endocrine level. So the endocrine system is a system that's a master regulator of all of our hormones: stress, sex, sleep. We think of hormones as just sex hormones, but they are, cortisol and melatonin and vitamin D and, these things that help us to wake up in the day, exert energy, go to sleep at night, all these things. So limonene can help normalize those holistically, those hormones. And it has been shown to be more effective than some antidepressants in treating depression, or to reduce the need for certain dosages of antidepressants. And that comes with a ton of caveats. I definitely don't recommend grapefruit instead of, antidepressant medication. This is why, though, you'll see the interaction. So if you're taking pharmaceutical, you'll know, well, I can't mix that with grapefruit. And it's because they're both going in for the same system in the body and having similar, engagement. So if you're not taking prescription medication, but you feel you'd like to treat a low mood naturally, consider some of these citrus fruits. Let's see. Limonene also, so I'm saying limonene, but you can also just, imagine the scent of citrus, is helpful for some weight loss, some cancer prevention, which is, again, huge caveats with that, and some bronchial diseases or illnesses. And in terms of the weight loss point, this tends to be because the scent is a mild appetite suppressant. Let's see. So as I mentioned, careful when pairing, or don't pair, unless you're working with an herbalist or a healthcare practitioner that understands how this works, citrus in concentrated forms with any kind of medications. Otherwise, get that fruit and eat it, drink it. If you are a juicer, you can juice whole citrus. So I juice whole lemon anytime that I juice with the peel. Grate the zest into recipes, grate the zest into tea, use the whole thing. Remember also that there's lots of vitamin C in the white, membrane in between the skin and the fruit. Let's see, I've got a couple more notes on the citrus, and then we'll get to the questions. So in studies, the cancer preventative action of lemon was second only to that of cranberries. So a lot of times we know cranberries as these super superfoods, right? We don't always think of lemon, like common old lemon, you know, but it's there. And it's also helpful for preserving the phytonutrients in other food. So phytonutrients are, you know, active compounds, plant chemicals, plant nutrients. So a tip for using any of the citrus is to add a little bit of it to your water or to your cup before you brew a green tea or any kind of tea that has, you know, phytonutrients in it. The citrus will help to extract more and kind of preserve it. The preserving is less important since you're going to drink it right away, but it helps with the absorption and the extraction. And then you can also remember that vitamin C helps with iron absorption. So if you're not using the parsley, maybe you have citrus on hand and you can use that to help absorb and enjoy the iron from your greens or whatever, you know, high iron veggie you're eating. And then of course, if possible, you know, eat and use the peels. That will cut down food waste, of course, but that really only applies if you have access to organic or you can get it, you know, locally. So I wanted to mention a few final points and then we can get to the questions. Some additional areas to explore if you liked this is, and food for thought. So kitchen medicine, food for thought. Almost all plant-based foods and culinary herbs and spices are medicinal. Almost all of them. I mean, I can't think of one that's not. It's just kind of a matter of how much, you know, how potent versus how not, which a lot of times has to do with water content too, but that's an aside. So things that I mentioned today, these are the norm. It's just, that is what, you know, that is what plant-based nutrition looks like. And you don't have to be totally vegan, you don't have to be vegetarian, but having more of these things in your life, you're going to be getting, you know, secret benefits and benefits that you know about, like these, just left and right. So at any point, if you're curious about a certain food, look it up, you know, and see what it's doing. If you're interested in specifically, you know, culinary medicine with no, you know, diet recommendations except eat more of these amazing plants, there's a very cool book called Eating on the Wild Side. And it kind of outlines, you know, apples, potatoes, spinach, green peas, carrots, onions, you know, and these tips, like, you know, like the garlic tip, like how do I get the most out of this ingredient that I'm eating on a regular basis? Another area to really lean into, so the fresh green herbs, you know, an amazing goal would be to try to use those on a regular basis. Also spices, you know, spices are phenomenal, and those can be shelf stable, you know, full of phytochemicals, usually really colorful too, and an awesome way to add medicine to your food. Let's see here. If possible, local and wild plants are superior almost always to organic, and sometimes more affordable depending on, you know, where you are. But if you have access to a farmer's market, or if you know that somebody is foraging in your area or doing plant walks, or, you know, any of these things, check it out. You know, if you're interested in this kind of thing, it can really open up the world of plants that surrounds us. For example, you know, I mentioned there's mint family growing all over Brooklyn. There's also mugwort. There's also a pineapple weed that is kind of like a chamomile. There's also wild spinach. I can walk out my door and it's called lamb's ear, you know, and get this wild spinach. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you forage in the sidewalks for food that you're going to eat, but, you know, this changes the way that we see the world. And it again kind of reminds us that herbalism can be everywhere. Let's see. And then I did mention eating the whole plant is typically preferable to extracting and trying to potentize just one ingredient. But there's always a place for doing that too. So it can be just a matter of finding a holistic health practitioner or an herbalist that can tell you, you know, what the best way is to proceed. So with that, which always feels like just scraping the surface, I hope you're inspired. I hope you do have other areas, you know, that you want to explore based on these leads. And it is now my pleasure to answer all of your questions. So feel free to chat more. And I'll actually just wait and let you read me the questions so that I don't overlap with any.
Okay, I'm back to help with this. So folks, feel free to keep submitting your comments. We'll try to answer as many as we can before our time is up in 15 minutes, but I'll go back to some that I saw earlier while you were speaking. So someone asked about herbs that can help relieve constipation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll do my quick spiel again, which is always let's try to consider the cause. So, you know, constipation, indigestion, which is so common right now. I think, you know, most of the clients that I see come in with some kind of digestive issue that is subpar. You know, usually it's worse than subpar, but or heartburn. So there's a reason that we are having these symptoms. Our body is saying something. And most likely, may not be the case, but most likely it's something that we're putting in, something nutritionally that our body is not happy with. It could be a deficiency. It could be, for example, you know, not enough digestive enzymes, or the need to do gut healing for a period of time to recover from, you know, antibiotic use, things like that. But we would definitely, you know, and I would encourage you to explore those areas. So what could be causing it before or at the same time as treating it with an herb, or treating the symptom with an herb. All of it could be treated with herbs and medicinal food. And that way we're not just suppressing a symptom, you know, over and over again, but actually healing the cause. In terms of constipation, my favorite remedies tend to be lots of water, lots of fiber. So ensuring that there's prebiotic fiber in the diet. That's a soluble fiber that you get from starchy foods, slippery, slimy things like okra, chia, flax. Chia and flax seeds are phenomenal for digestive health. We want to make sure that there's this good quality fiber, not just psyllium husk, which is really popular as a fiber supplement. We want it to come from food that also has a nutritional value, fiber, water, and then we could look at, I almost never use laxatives, to be honest. There are a lot of laxative herbs, but I really just caution against that because they can be really stripping. Triphala, you know, with hesitation, I'll say triphala. It's an Ayurvedic blend of 3 different herbs that can help with motility. But I would really look at like a gut healing protocol, probiotics, prebiotic fiber, lots of water, go from there. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Another question that came in while you were talking about citrus is, do you recommend adding peels to just any cup of tea?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, it doesn't have to be a green tea, for example. The citrus can help with the extraction of many phytonutrients. So I would say, yeah, it's a little bonus. And then the bonus just is you're getting the citrus peel, and that's full of all the things that I, kind of described. So anywhere you want to put the citrus peel, do. Yeah.
One question that came in was specifically about red clover, but I think we can kind of extrapolate a little. So this person had harvested red clover and dried it and wanted to know about how much quantity you would use for a tea. But I think that's a question that is useful talking about herbs in general, right? Like how much of something do you use in a particular application?
Yeah, that's great. I wish I had a sort of mason jar here, because red clover, which I have in my herb stash right in the corner here. Red clover is something we use in herbal tea in pretty large quantities on a regular basis in treating hormone balance or hormone imbalance. Red clover I'll talk about, and then I'll talk about the quantities. Red clover is a good example of a local plant, depending on where you are, but I saw a lot of Northeast and actually, North America. You'll see it just growing in the grass, all over the place. It's a phytoestrogen, or it contains phytoestrogens, which are plant-like estrogens that bind to estrogen receptors in the body and help to support a state of normalcy. So it's not pure estrogen, and it's not problematic. It's generally more helpful. Red clover can also be, so it's dried and probably in a whole flower form, but you'll sometimes see, and you'll have to look for it, but red clover can be made into flour and used like a baking flour, which I when I learned that, I just thought it was genius. It is a very nutritious plant, and so great in any kind of form. In terms of quantity, with red clover, you can be pretty liberal. If you have a mason jar, I'll start people with just a little bit of herb in the bottom, and then the rest of it hot water to make tea. But if we were treating hormone imbalance, or if I were one of the other herbalists practicing that are a little heavier handed, that jar might be 3/4 full of dried red clover and then hot water poured over it. So there's a lot of room to play with how much you're consuming. You could drink that every single day. In terms of the quantities of herbs, it is so different for every kind of herb when they're in their concentrated forms, that it's really important to find a professional or trust the company that you're purchasing from or the person you're purchasing from. If it's food medicine, like rosemary, parsley, citrus, it's very hard to overdo it or to go wrong. One leaf, better than none. If you wanted to, I'll juice half of a bunch of parsley multiple times a week. It's hard to overdo it in a diet, but when you're getting capsules, tinctures, powders, then it's important to know what dosage is right for you, because it varies a ton. Yeah.
On that topic, there are a lot of questions about individual herbs, and we don't have time to talk about all of them, obviously, but people have questions about thyme and dandelion and wormwood. So rather than maybe addressing each of those right now, how do you recommend someone steps away from this workshop and starts to find out about these things on their own? What are the best resources you can recommend?
Yeah, so I would say best case scenario, and it may not be possible right away, but best case scenario would be a farmer's market. This is where you'll find the food medicine together. You'll find dandelion, and you'll learn how to eat it too. You'll find nettle, and you'll know how to eat it too. And you'll get great source, and some of it may be wild or more wild, which I didn't get into, but the wilder the plant, kind of the more rugged the terrain that it's growing in, and the more it's got to survive, without a perfectly cultivated environment, the more potent it is. And that can be by a factor of 10 or something. It's a huge difference. Eating an apple, from a sort of wild tree as opposed to one from the supermarket, even if it's like a great organic apple. So that has a lot of value. Otherwise, I love to send people to Mountain Rose Herbs. Has a great resources section that includes herbal schools, books, and I believe practitioners. If they don't list practitioners, then the American Herbalist Guild lists practitioners. However, that can be a little overwhelming because they're thousands and thousands and thousands. So another place that you might start is the book I mentioned, Eating on the Wild Side, or see if there's a local herbalist near you, and set up a conversation with them and say, like, I have constipation. I want to figure out why. Or, I want to make my food more medicinal. And on that note, just since that's what we're talking about, if you want to make your food more medicinal, my recommendations would be lean into those fresh green herbs: parsley, thyme, oregano, basil, cilantro, rosemary. Those are all like heroes and easy to access. And lean into spices, and then kind of go from there, and eat more plants in general.
And I think a nice closing question came from Rachel. In your work, do you help clients discover the root cause of their issues? And is it easy to explain how you do that? I'm new to the work of clinical herbalists, but I'm turning to the field to understand the root cause of adult acne.
Yes, 100%, absolutely. I help people understand the cause. That is, I would consider that my work, even more than, can I give you an herb for X? I don't, people will come to me with, I want an herb for X, and we get to know each other, and it's about, what's the cause? And a lot of times that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is, how do I do the things that I now know I need to do, if it's nutritionally, herbally, or from a lifestyle standpoint. A lot of care today doesn't help somebody along all the way. You get your prescription and you're kind of left to figure it out, or make it work or make it last. So I help people understand what their body is saying, and then we work together so that they feel enabled to do what they need and want to do without me, for as long as they then, care to. So it's a little bit of education. It's a little bit of, prescription, not using that word. It's a lot of accountability and support, and it's very holistic, because sometimes the cause is not what we are eating and drinking, or not what we're not eating and drinking. It may be something else, and as an herbalist, you have to consider it all, and as just a human, considering it all. So yeah.
All right. Well, Rachelle, thank you so much for this workshop today. I certainly learned a lot. For folks who watch this and feel like you just learned so much and you don't know how to keep all this information in your head, the recording of this workshop is on our Facebook page. And it's going to stay up there. So you can watch it as many times as you want to learn about all of the different things you can do with these herbs. I've also included in the chat a link to Rachelle's website where you can learn more about her and her practice. She has other resources on her website as well that are really useful if this is a subject matter you want to learn more about. And just because you mentioned spices a little earlier, I want to extend an invitation to you all to participate in Thursday's Apotheke event, which is Intro to Spices, where you'll learn about the history of spices very briefly, and how to use spices together or independently, different properties of spices and things like that. That's being led by Ori Zohar, who is one of the co-owners of Burlap and Barrel. It's going to be super fun.
I interject. That's so great. They're when I recommend spices, I'm always like Burlap and Barrel. Yeah, the best. That's great.
Yes, so I'm going to send a follow-up email to everyone attended with links, including a registration link to that event. And with that, thank you all so much, Rachelle. Thank you again. This was so wonderful.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone. Cheers.